Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another ISSA talk. I promised you guys I would have Robert Linkle back, and he is back. I'm so excited to have you back with us, Robert. Welcome.
And thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here. Showing you some toys today. We're going to
I know. I'm so excited. So we've talked a little bit with Robert about training the older adult, which is what he has based his career and his business around. But today, Robert, before we dive in, though, I want you to remind everybody who you are, how you got into training, and what it is that you do.
Absolutely. So trainingtheolderadult.com, that's our gym here. My wife and I, Keegan, started TOA in 2016 was our first course that we offered. And it's just kind of grown from there. So half our business, we do training other trainers on how to work with older pops. We kept getting emails of how do we do it and what do we do and how do we not hurt them? And we just kept answering that over and over again. And we said, hey, why don't we make a course? One of the guys I was actually mentoring was like, you guys should make a course. That same individual 2 years later said, you guys should do an affiliate program. I want to be TOA. And that's TOA Portland, Texas. That's why he's on our shirt. He was number one. Anyhow, so that's half our business. And the other half is in-house training and online training for our clients, which have about 60 clients that I work with. And those clients, on average, it's been like 14 years, each one of them. I've had a long 10-year group that have been with me a long time. So we do that. I'm also on the board with the National Strength and Conditioning Association, the NSCA. I'm the personal training representative there. And I've been a regional coordinator, a state director, state provisional director, chair for the personal training committee, 15 plus years of volunteer work with them, running conferences and events and stuff all over the world. So spoken in Ireland, Iceland, Canada, all over the US. I speak virtually every day to somebody and present and do podcasts like this, all about education. So super excited to be here and to share with all of you. Last time we got to talk a lot about different strategies and programming, and we jumped all over. It was really fun. And kind of made a joke in passing, like, I should show you some of the equipment sometime. And you're like, I'll take you up on that.
Let's do it.
Here we are.
Yes, because I know I follow you on social media, and you do highlight a lot of the different equipment that you use. You highlight a lot of your clients, which is awesome. So let's get to it, Robert. I want you to share with us some of your favorite equipment that you have in your studio and some different things that you can do with them.
You bet. So first of all, there are some pieces that you're going to see, and I'm going to be like, they're expensive. And then there's some ones that we were just talking about, a pulley system that costs like $45, $50. So I'm going to show you stuff across the board. Some of the more expensive items we saved for months. For this guy, for the K-Box right here, that was like a year of me saving to get up to be able to purchase one of those. So these are want toys. Some of them. There are definitely some that are need toys, but there are some that are want toys as well. And the reason that we get them specifically is for either an individual or a need that we are not able to achieve due to regular equipment that we have. And the first one, the big one, I'll start with the tank right over my shoulder here, the Torque M1 tank. This piece of equipment, I was working with some individuals that were using walkers and canes, and I couldn't find a way to connect the dots on how can I do the strength training work in this room that would make them better at creating a longer gait without actually being able to take a longer gait. Like we kept getting stuck in a position where they couldn't quite take that step without support. And I'm like, if we had a way to do the walker, and not have them fall over, but make it really hard where they had to be athletic and push it, like that would be perfect. And a couple of days later, I was watching a video with Dustin Poirier, UFC fighter, and Brian Shaw, one of the world's strongmen, who both just happened to live in Colorado. And Brian had a tank, and he and Dustin were pushing it back and forth. And I was like, look at this thing. That's really cool. I wish they would make one for like regular people. And so when I looked it up, there was this guy, which is like the home use version of it. So when you take a look at this, as opposed to most sleds or prowlers, this will only go forward and back, and it will only go a certain speed. So right now it's on number 3. And if I try to like over push it, it won't go any faster than what you just saw. So I can either drag and barely move it, or I can sprint as hard as I can like that. But that was top speed. But that was a level 3. So if I go to a level 2 and there's tension on the way back, if I go to a level 2, it'll go a little faster. And then if I go to a level 1 or all the way down to neutral, now neutral, it just rolls. It'll just go, right? And I can push and put as much weight on there as I want. So what I love about this is with my clients, and we may have them that walk, the small Mr. Burns, style of walking or type of walking, where are we going to be able to take them in a regular weight room and work on like true hip extension?
Yeah.
Not where they're just extended to neutral to standing, but work through this like athletic turnover drive that I would see if someone were sprinting, running uphill, going up flights of stairs. That's about it. Like that's the only time I would see somebody in this position of that ability. And it's like, well, I'm not going to do any of those with these folks. So this became the missing piece. I'm like, we've got to get one of these. They were, I think, like $800 or $900 at the time. This one's 2 years old. They have a brand new one that now has a higher bar, mounts that you can put dumbbells on each end. It still has the toe strap connection at the front. I believe there's another gear. So there's 4 gears now. There's a box that tells you like electronically how far you've gone, your tension, your speed. You can record it all. And the handles, these guys just pop up when you go to grab them. The handles now, I believe, have a turn and a lock. So you can pick the sled up from the back end. Because right now, like people try to turn it if it's not perfectly straight. When you go to turn it, the handles just pop off.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of an annoying part of it is you have to kind of tilt it back when you do it. But the key component was having stability, but athleticism and a controlled speed where it wouldn't run away from them. And our older pot, like they just, every time they're here, they do this every single time, no matter what. And every time they seem to get a little bit better, because they're now able to practice these longer strides, these longer gait variations, but not feel like they're going to fall over. And if I start with like a level 1 with hardly any weight on it, it's, 60 pounds of pressure. And then I can make it 100 pounds and I can make it 150. So when they get up to the point where it's 225, like it is now, to be able to push this. And then when they go to walk away, they're like, oh, I can take like these regular big striding steps because they've trained their body to be strong enough to do so, which has been a big part of our business. Now, there are other ways to kind of simulate this. You can kind of simulate that with bands. Like NT loops work really well for that. You could put an NT loop around somebody's waist and then have them push a prowler or any other sled, a lawn boy, anything else. And then you can kind of control the support with the band behind them. So as they're pushing, you're kind of walking, holding the band almost to the point where it's like it's controlling their tempo. And if they start to get out of control or over push it, you can basically just pull them back up and stop them. So that's one way to do it. Or we've seen people that'll take like a regular prowler or a lawn boy and put bands around the bars and then hook them to a squat rack. And then when you go to push it out, the bands get tighter. And then the bands pull it back, right? So you can basically go drive, and then down, climb as it goes back. Drive, down, climb as it goes back. But it's going to increase in tension, so it can't get away from them either. It does get harder, but it's still good tension. So if you don't have, $700-800 to invest in one of these, there's a way to do it if you have a current sled. Next, I'll go to these ones. So this is the Power Block adjustable kettlebell. And what I love about it, travel-wise, it's great because you have 4 different kettlebells built into one. So this is 8 kilos as it is by itself here. And then I've got 3 different weights in here. I can adjust it to 10 kilos, 12 kilos, or 16 kilos. So if I do 12 kilos and I take that out, there's the extra weight.
Oh, cool.
The original design of this was terrible. I don't know who originally designed it, but they sold it to Power Block. Power Block made it metal instead of plastic, and they laser cut the inside and they magnetized the pin. So when you go to push it in there, it pulls it in and it locks it. And it's a great design. So if you don't want all these kettlebells behind you on a shelf, if you're a one-on-one trainer or you just have a smaller space, this is a great option, right? So this one goes 8, 10, 12, 16 kilos. And then Big Daddy over there goes 16, 20, 24, and 28 kilos. So you have 4 built into that one as well. It's steel and you can't drop it, right? And if we're going to throw stuff, that's where we go to this guy. So this is the GoRuck Sand Kettlebell. And what I like most about these is you can do this and it's not going to damage it or hurt it. So our clients can throw them. They can pick them up and drop them. We'll do a lot of like clean pull or high pulls and just let them get dynamic and explosive and drive it up, flop it back on the ground. They're not really designed necessarily to be slammed. So I wouldn't start, smashing them on the ground, but they're definitely durable enough for you to toss them, throw them. They use them at the CrossFit games. They've used them in strongman competitions where they're throwing, up and over big high crossbars, like pole vault bars and such. Our clients really like them too, because that's 26 pounds, 12 kilos. And this is a regular 12 kilo, 26 pound kettlebell. And you can see my height difference there of where I'm going to pull from off the floor. I'm about 4 or 5 inches higher. So if I'm 72-year-old, bad back, fake hips, and getting all the way down here, I have to round my back to get to it. With these guys, I can stay much higher and I can pick up and do my deadlifts from there. So very fun for different pickups, different variations with that one. And then our pulley, this guy here, let me show you one that's unattached. And then I'll show you these guys too. I got all kinds of stuff in here. So this is a Angles 90 pulley. And I'll show you the Angle 90 grips here in just a moment. So most of these pulleys have a metal piece right here. And I wouldn't suggest putting a 550 cordage of any kind of rope into a metal pulley, because it's going to wear away and eventually splinter and it'll break while you're rowing on it. Well, Angle 90 made a plastic hard composite pulley on the inside, so it won't rub the material of the rope onto the metal. The plastic actually maintains it really, really well. So this particular pulley, same one that I have up there, works really well for wherever you want to perform any pulls. It's easy to click in. I've got mine hooked into just a regular little eye hook up here. And then the Angle 90 handles, we'll talk about the ergonomics of those in a moment. The 550 cordage, I can cut and basically adjust to whatever height works just right for me. So right before we went on, I was telling you, I like to do kneeling pull downs. I like to do these guys a lot. And so the regular cable pulley is so long that the handles are right here. So for me to do a pull down, I have to back way up. I have to lean all the way over. So I just got my own cordage and connected it on there, and I can cut it and make it and adjust it to whatever height that I want from there pretty well. So those are rather inexpensive. And then let me show you, again, I should have said this at the beginning. I don't have any financial connections to any of these companies. It's everybody.
You just like their stuff.
Yeah, of course you're going to plug this one. You get some money from them. I don't. I have a couple little discount codes that they give us because they like us and we share a lot. So here's a regular handle. Okay, that's what most of us see in the gyms wherever we're at. It's same distance, same width all the way through. For clients with arthritis, hanging on to something in many cases that is either too big or too small for their grip can really be problematic. So I started looking for other grips. I found these guys. And if you notice the Angle 90 handle, it's fatter in the middle and then it's tapered at the end. And so when a client grabs onto that to row, they basically have something that fills up their palm, but their fingers can taper in smaller around their thumb and their pinky. And when they go to row this guy, it's got a curve to it as well. That's a lot more comfortable for the arthritic hand. This company designed this initially. Simon and the company, they're Italian. He designed this for athletic performance. He wanted people to be able to do rotational pull-ups and do deadlifts and all this, and they work great for that. But our clients have found the arthritic component of having such a comfortable, curved, form-fitting grip to really be specifically more comfortable for them. All of our clients, we have, again, almost 60, and I would guess that 55 of them have their own pair of these at home.
Oh,
and
nice.
They'll just hook these, they'll just hook them up like right to the bands. They all have bands like this at home. So they'll just get a carabiner and they click right into that and they can do their rows with a comfortable handle on rather than just grabbing the band or using any other kind of general one. So we love those handles. Yeah, angles are great. This guy is called an Anchor system. I think they call it Anchor. When I talked to the CEO, he just called it Anchor, but I call it Anchor because I want to make sure there's a difference where people understand it's not an anchor system, it's an Anchor system. So it's Ancore. And basically these are, if for a lack of a better explanation, like little mini flywheels These two gentlemen both had elbow injuries, and they were both, I think, like AAA baseball players. And they met each other in a rehab center, and they were using bands and doing all this. And they're like, we need something that's heavier, but as we move further away, it'll actually progress in tension, but it's heavier and more consistent than a band is, and that you could scale and weigh. And so they got with a buddy of theirs who's an engineer, and they started building this. And basically these guys, they just twist and unlock. And so you can go, oh, I want 10 pounds of pressure. No, I want 20 pounds. I want 30 pounds. And they all just interlock in this little web. And there's a big loaded spring on the inside. So you can load up as many of these as you want, up to like 120 pounds. But you can see, like, I could take all of them off one side and I can still row. It doesn't matter where I have them set up. I've got a tension of row. And then this guy unvelcros here. You can hear the Velcro, right? I can undo that and adjust it to whatever height. I'll put it on a bench and then do sit-to-stands with a belt. So our clients will sit up against it. We can hook it onto the tank, put a block on it and anchor it and do rows from there. It's a pretty well designed piece of equipment. It's super, super durable. I've put thousands of reps through it and the tension has not changed, which is usually the case with a lot of these. Once you get a couple hundred reps in there, everything starts loosening up and it's not as tight or as tensioned anymore. So that's been a key component for us. It's like, if I'm going to invest in this, which again, this is kind of a higher price ticket item. I want to say $450 is the smaller version, all the way up to like $800 or $900, depending on how many of these guys you get. And they have like a whole unit that you can pull the pin and the whole thing will adjust and slide up and down rather than having to Velcro and unvelcro it, that kind of thing. So this guy, pretty cool in terms of that like eccentric, constant tension, kind of pulling back. I don't want to say flywheel because this is a flywheel, but it's pretty close to a flywheel as best you can without it being a flywheel. And that brings us to the flywheel. So this is the original design of the first flywheel was for squatting. I'm going to show you with just like a little bicep curl here, but the belt squat, I believe, was the first design of this. This one is from a company called Eccentric, EXX, and they are out of Sweden. And I'm a bit of a geek, a bit of a dork when it comes to this stuff, where I kind of obsess a little bit over where and how and what they do. Let me move up here so everybody can see me a little bit better. There we go. So this whole little unit, it weighs about 45 pounds. And the idea of the flywheel is if I can create momentum that spins this wheel. Okay, this is like 2 kilos, so 4.5 pounds. It's going to spin this 4.5 pounds, and you're like, 4.5 pounds, that's no big deal. This will create hundreds of pounds of pressure as fast as I can spin it. So think of like a kid back in the day. They had those little wooden like tops, and you could put a string around it, and you'd pull the string and flick it, and it would spin, 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 right? Now imagine if that was secured in space and the string didn't come off. So if you pulled it and created momentum and it kept spinning, eventually it would top out and it would it would like reel in the handle, right? So that's kind of the design of the flywheel is if I'm going to pull and create this momentum, that momentum is going to go to the wheel and it's going to pull back. And so if you're not ready, it'll just rip out of your hands and it'll take off. Oh. So it's like a concentric pull with an eccentric deceleration. So it's not isokinetic because there's movement and there's movement in both directions under tension. So it's this dynamic, concentric, eccentric controlled contraption. And the really cool part is if you're going to do eccentric trained focused lifting, typically you need a lot of load, more like 100 and 110 or 120% of what you actually lift, like on a bench press, right? If I can bench press 100, I'd put 120 on there and I would do the down really slow. And then my buddy would help me lift it up. And then I do the down really slow. I can create that much tension with this and get way more work into it. So I'm going to pull and create 60 pounds of pressure. And because I created it, ideally, if I know what to do with it, I can slow it down. It can never be too heavy for me because I'm the one creating the momentum of it. That's kind of the beauty of it. Where people are like, oh, this might be too heavy. It won't be because you're the one that's creating the momentum. If you created it, you can decelerate it and you can stop. Okay. All right. So enough talking. All right. So you adjust the height of the strap, there's a little press release button that I'm pressing here that releases the strap. And then when you're ready to go, you just give it a little pre-wind. And as that comes down, now I can start my curl, and you see the wheels start to spin. And so I have concentric, eccentric, a concentric, and eccentric. And so I have this constant tension of the wheel pulling me back down. It needs a little oil. It's a little squeaky, right? As we go. And you see the momentum of it spinning this guy down here. So I could go way slower if I wanted to. If I'm just like, it's a little too much for me, I could kind of slow down a little bit and just take my time and go, all right, I'm going to control this eccentric. And there's only, 15, 20 pounds of pressure right there. Or I could really give it a heave, and that thing's going to pull and really make me work every time I get after it.
That's cool.
As much tension as you want. Yeah, it's one of my favorite devices. And I'll tell you, it works exceptionally well. Like, we'll do every Monday. Monday's my big leg day. So I did, I think I did 7 sets of 20 on this guy via belt squat this morning. It was just smoked when we got done. I was so toast because it's unforgiving. And if you go like as aggressively, as dynamically as you can, the amount of momentum that you create on this is very, very great. You have to decelerate it and then change the direction is the part that's really hard. Yeah. Is changing the momentum to come back up. And when you get the feel of it, you get the rhythm, you get the technique down, damn, it's hard. But it's exactly what we want. So this particular device, I was kind of shopping around because one of my other clients had a hip replacement recently. We were having a hard time getting her hip to bite, to engage and work through a full range of motion. It would kind of shut off like halfway down. She's a bit older. She's in her mid 80s. And so I'm like, I got to find something that will allow her to basically create and like accelerate as she comes up. And then she's got to do something with that momentum. And I came across this video of a guy with this, and I was like, okay, that looks pretty cool. I looked at the price and I was like, oh no, I'm not getting that thing. That's way too expensive. And then I started to have the same issue with my hip. And I went, okay, because I've had both my hips replaced, as we talked about last time. Like, all right, so maybe it wouldn't just be for my client. Maybe it would be for me too. And since we've got it, it's like 80% for me. I use it a lot with the clients, but I use it almost daily. So yeah, this guy, this unit by itself, it comes with 2 different plates, that handle, a belt, a pair of anklets, ankle cuffs, a handle, this handle that I showed you earlier, and a replacement strap and a little ramp for the back foot so you can do kickstands and such. And that was $2,000. That's the biggest ticket price item I've ever purchased.
Wow.
If you just get the platform and the wheel, I think it's like $1,200, but I got a bunch of toys to go with it. So my point in showing you all that is some as little as, $4 rope with a $45 pulley, right? All the way up to a $2,000 flywheel. There's all kinds of different options, different ways. And all of this is just, I'm looking at people and I'm trying to solve a problem. And I'm like, why would a cable pulley, why would this rope pulley be different than if I just got a cable stack in here? Well, this guy, number one, it's portable and I can move it wherever I want. I can adjust my loads. You can put a kettlebell or there's a little net basket that goes in there and you can put a bunch of weights in or take them out. But I can also hook bands to that, which I can't do all that well with a plate stack sometimes. So now as I'm pulling it with 35 pounds on there, but an additional 20-pound band, it's going to go 35, 45, 55, 65 pounds of pressure and then come back down or something like that, right? Like you would be able to accommodate resistance onto that. But with a stack machine, it may be more of an issue than not. Adjustable, I can move it around in the gym. I've got multiple eye hooks all over. Just works a little more efficiently for me in this space. But I could go around the room and go through all of that. You look at something that takes up a lot of space or has a big footprint. Probably the biggest one we have is the ski erg. Most people might not see it here. That's Concept 2.
Yeah, in the corner there.
That's a Concept 2 ski erg right there, right? And for that, it's like most of my clients have back and hip issues. So a regular rower wasn't all that efficient. And the standing ski erg, that cross-country motion works great. It tractions the back, displaces the hips, good upper body action. And most of our clients can do more upper body cardio than lower cardio at this older age. So that was kind of a no-brainer for us, but we use it so much. There's such a commitment to the action that earned that, 3 by 4 foot little space over there. It's worth it for me to have it in there. Other things I can adjust and move around. Oh, I forgot to show you the ramp. Oh,
yeah. I want to know about the little wall over there.
Yeah. So this is, I'm going to trademark this. I don't know what we're going to call it. There's a couple of 2x4s underneath there, and we thought about calling it the Fit by 4. So maybe something like that. All right. So we have a client who does the Mr. Burns walk, right? Can't take these big steps. Every time they try to step forward, they get unwobbly. And we're working with the tank, or maybe we don't have a tank. And it's like, how could I get them to take this longer, bigger step, but not have a regular step? If this is too difficult, how can I make this easier? Okay. Just a regular 2.5 or 3 foot step. Well, if I brought the floor up to them, not just higher, but I put it back at a ramp where it actually pushes them back to where they came, they could practice the depth of the step. Then I can add load to it, and they could start to develop an overload, working at an easier angle and push themselves back to when I take the load away and I put it to a harder angle, could I overload and overtrain them to be able to do that? And we have done that successfully with like 10 different people. So it works anecdotally very well. I don't have any research to spout off about. So we'll have clients that will start here and basically just take a step onto the ramp and push off, take a stamp onto the ramp and push off, and then they can start working a little higher, and then they can start going a little deeper. And it's pretty easy. I would guess about 30 or 40% easier than doing one on the floor, okay? So we can adjust that height easier by going up, more Fit by 4s, or we make it a little harder by going down. And then we'll start to give them weights to hold on to while they do this. And it could be as simple as like a 1 foot step. Like they're literally only taking a 12-inch step, but it's an easier step. It's a vertical step, not super high, but it is a vertical step. And so, grandma, grandpa, great grandma, great grandpa, anyone who's starting to get to a point where we're looking at them going, you're becoming a fall risk just standing there, let alone trying to walk about. We don't want you to be dependent on your walker or your cane. That might be something that you use, but you're not dependent on it. And we'll have folks that will use their walker to get in here. But once they're in here, we're training. They're walking around, they're capable. They just use the walker as like a safety device. I want to get them to the point where they're like, I don't need this thing. I feel really confident in what I'm doing. So teaching them to split squat or step up or any of that, we're so far away from that. That's steps 5, 6, 7. Where are steps 1, 2, and 3? Okay. Walking gait is tiny. A lunge step to the floor is huge. What do I do in between that? Yeah. So we got going on this ramp here kind of by accident one day. I had that board out and we were using it a little, I'll break the fourth wall here for you. That means I'll give you an inside look. This is a converted garage. So in every garage, there's a little runoff on the floor. There's a little taper to the gym. So if you look at the black baseboard behind me, do you see how it's bigger over here?
Oh, and slightly,
it's really small. It's really small right there, right? So the whole room tapers that way and it goes downhill just a little bit. But if I stand perfectly straight, my left hip is off by like 1/4 of an inch. So I got that board and I put a 1/4 inch piece of rubber under one end. So when we would do our Olympic lifts or deadlifts, we would pull off a level platform. So we would just stand on that. Well, one day I had a client in here and I kept getting stuff in the way. So I just took that piece of wood and I laid it against the rack back here, and it was at a little bit of an angle. And I had them start throwing a ball against it to do some reaction drills. And as we were doing that, I was watching him kind of walk around, and I'm like, I really need him to, like, if he could walk uphill, that'd be a lot easier. And I saw the ramp and I'm like, let's just try it. Let me just try having him lunge against it. And he did like a full knee to the floor lunge, just like 80-year-old guy. And I'm like, what happened? Right? Like it just blew my mind in a moment. Like this guy, he could barely even walk. And then he did this. And I'm like, all right, we're on to something. So since then, we've used all kinds of different stuff. We got butcher blocks, so it's a much thicker, more stable board. It's a little prettier, right, in what we use. And it's a great piece. All of our TOA affiliates, they've all assembled and built ramps, and they all have them in their gyms, and they help out quite a bit. So there's a little behind the scenes look inside the gym. Other than that, I've got dumbbells over here. These are regular dumbbells down here. These are 2.5s all the way up to 15s. And then these are fat bells, center mass bells, which means your hand's in the center of the weight, which is really, really good for people that have wrist or hand issues, arthritic issues, neuropathies, anything like that. Center mass bells or fat bells. There are 2 companies, Sorinex and Rogue. They're the only 2 that make them. And apparently, I think his name's Donnie Thompson and Bert Soren were roommates or something, and they thought of this thing together, and they both have like napkins with drawings on it saying that they created it. And so they're the only two that are allowed to create them. So it's either a center mass bell, Sorinex, or fat bell, Rogue. So these are fat bells. I love Burt, but everything in here is Rogue, so I stuck with them. And then we have regular kettlebells or on this side. These are the Torque little plyo boxes. I have 12s and 18s. This is a 14-inch wall-mounted Monster Light wall rack from Rogue. I love that rack. We hardly use it at all to bench or bench press out of or back squat out of. It's a huge anchor system basically for us to hook everything up to. I think that's about it. I got a Swiss bar. We use Swiss bar over here when we do bench press, a couple of mats on the wall, different handles and adjustments, a glute roller. Oh, let me show you these too. So these are very sophisticated, very high tech walking sticks. These guys work great. Nice. So these are like $40 walking sticks, right? So these are fantastic for our clients too, that if I'm going to try to do a split squat and I just grab onto a chair or a bench or some fixed object, my ability to try to independently support myself in space basically goes away because I was like, I can't balance, completely balanced. As soon as I put my hand on the wall, completely balanced. There's nothing for me to worry about anymore. So what's in between hand on the wall and not hand on the wall? We thought something that they could brace with, but it was still independent to move all over. So it's kind of a half and a half. So we'll just use a regular hiking stick and let them kind of do some split squats and help. And then eventually we go, hey, why don't you just kind of hold it, right? And then eventually, why don't you not have it touch the floor at all? Or if they're doing walking lunges, they'll hang on to these, and every step they take, like if they go to lose balance, they can correct with it, but then kind of continue on and not use it to the best of their abilities. So fancy toys, not so fancy toys, they all work. Everything has a purpose. Everything in here serves a purpose. Nothing collects dust other than my barbells. Those are strictly for show. We do no barbell work, zero barbell work. Awesome. Even with landmines, we don't do those at all. I think that's it.
Yeah, I love that a lot of this equipment, like you said, it runs the range as far as price, but a lot of it's pretty darn simple. And I love that it's portable. We get asked all the time. Like somebody asked on Facebook today, they want to start like traveling to their clients. And they were like, well, what kind of things should I have? I listed off some of the stuff I have in my garage, but I don't have like a pulley. Again, easy, as long as you have somewhere to anchor it from, right? And the right size or right length cording to go with it. Some of these bells that aren't super heavy are a great idea. Even the Torque tank looks like it's something that probably looks heavy, but it's something that you could still pick up and take with you.
Oh yeah. We have our Folsom affiliate. He goes and travels to 2 different clients, their homes, and he brings his in his truck. It's about 65 pounds assembled, but you can pull the handles, pick up the whole thing and put it in there. Yeah, it's not too bad at all. I think for most people are going to have some place outside their home where they can loop a strap from a high anchor. Mm-hmm. If you can do that, pulleys are fantastic. If you can't do that, a door anchor with bands are even better. Bands got us through the pandemic. Bands can do some very good work, but bands are also not allowing you to maximize tension throughout the full range of motion, only at its deepest range. So it's always going to get lighter, harder, where 20 pounds is 20 pounds. So I think they both have their place. But if you have the opportunity to be able to put up a pulley somewhere, I think that'd be great. A lot of our traveling trainers will use a loop strap, like a come along, right? You can basically tether and you cinch it up. And then there's a loop strap out of that. And you can just hook up a carabiner and then you're good. But it'll be a loop on on their deck or their shingle hangoffs, the little main support beams that stick out. You throw a come along like you would use in your truck, right? To like cinch up stuff or tow another vehicle. Those are called come alongs. So you throw one of those on there, cinch it up, and you're good to go. Those are geared for 5,000 pounds, whatever you could dangle from it. You and your client could both swing and it would be just fine, right? Like that would be completely fine. Those things are very, very safe. They're tested at super high tensions. The same with the 540, it's not 550 pounds. That's just the name of the tension and the intensities in there. It's like 2,500 pounds of pressure. Like those things aren't going to break unless they're rubbing against something else. Very, very durable, good pieces of equipment. I'm all for paying for quality. I've got a shed outside full of junk equipment that I thought was going to be good, and it wasn't. And so I just don't talk about those. I'm not a big fan of like smashing or punching down at something that's not good, but I will definitely promote and highlight stuff that is great. And all that stuff that's great, it's all in this room right now. So yeah, when someone like you're like, hey, can you show us the toys? I'm like, hell yeah, I can show you the toys. There are a bunch out there though that are not good. So if you're not seeing it appear here, either I don't know about it and I haven't got to try it out, or it's not so good.
Yeah. And I would trust your experience, like with not only your time training people, but with what you do at NSCA. Like you have some experience. You're around a lot of products.
For sure. There's a device out there. I won't say the name of it, but I'll just kind of give you an idea of what it is. Okay. Which I thought was genius. I was like, oh, this will be great. Okay. It's a bar, and at each end, it has an attachment point where you could hook dumbbells or kettlebells to it. And I thought, okay, I could take a 16 kilo kettlebell and a 16 kilo kettlebell, hook this bar to it, and I could do deadlifts, right? With my clients or something along those lines. I could hook 2 15-pound dumbbells and I could clean and press it or whatever I want. If I wanted to have like an adjustable barbell, I would have one. So I invested in this. It was a decent amount of money, more than $100. And it was absolute junk plastic. It was the most like, if I asked a fifth grader to create something, that's what I was like, never seen such a good idea performed and created so poorly. Because that could have been a masterful piece of equipment for me to use in here. How great would that have been? Yeah. You don't need a barbell. I could just hook other weights to it and adjust my, like that would have been great, for those that have kettlebells and dumbbells and don't want to buy bars and plates. And man, I would have promoted the hell out of that thing, but it was garbage. So it's sitting out there, collecting dust and not being talked about. And there's quite a few things like that are out there. The one thing I haven't tried, and maybe somebody else has and they can comment on here, I'm not a huge fan of elevating heels when you squat. Sure. I know that's a debatable topic right now, but there's a kit out there that has a 15, a 30, and a 45 degree angle wedge block series that it all like folds together into a box. It looks really cool. And I'm like, oh, it's portable, it's mobile. I'm thinking like this, but smaller, right? I could put this against the wall and have a 30 degree ramp to step on because it's fairly, they're fairly big, like big enough to put a foot on. Yeah. And I thought, okay, rear leg elevated kickstands, rear leg elevated Bulgarian split squats, etc. I'm like, I think that could be a pretty cool piece. So that's one I'm going to be investing in here shortly. I think I'm going to get a pair of those in here and see where we go.
Nice.
Anything else that I've been looking at recently? D-blocks. Have you heard of D-blocks?
Maybe.
D-block is either a 12 by 12 or a 12 by 16 inch block that's 2 inches high, and you can stack them on top of each other and make whatever height you want. They were designed for Olympic lifters to be able to put a 2-inch bumper block under their bar. And when they would do a clean pull, instead of pulling it from, 9 inches off the floor, it would be 11 inches off the floor. So they could pull from different heights. But they were super durable. You could drop thousands of pounds on these things and they wouldn't break. They're so good and they're so popular. The U.S. Olympic Training Center got rid of all their squat racks and they just have thousands of D-blocks and everyone builds their own heights that they want. So it's like if you're 6 foot, and you want a 54-inch rack to squat out of, they're like, oh, you need 23 blocks on each side. And so you just stack them up and put a bar on there and it would be the height you want. And you could do heave jerks from that. Or if you want a back squat, you would take it out from there and squat. So these D-blocks have a last block that you can put on that's a flat shelf and you could step up. You could do sit to stands. You could lay on it and do bench press. It's a pretty durable, adjustable piece of equipment, but they're like $80 for a pair of them. So it's really expensive to buy 20 of them, right? So it's like, do I buy plyo boxes and then buy D-blocks, or do I use the D-blocks as my plyo box, right? Like you want to buy stuff that's going to have a footprint, but have multiple uses. Like nothing in here has just a single use, with the exception of probably the ski erg. Like that's all we do on it, the ski erg. Everything else, I could use it, move it, rearrange it, attach to it. Even the racks here that hold the weights, at the bottom of the racks, right there is an anchor, and right there is an anchor, and I can hook bands to those. And my clients can do high pulls or rows or whatnot. So we'll even use the racks as an anchor point to hook stuff to. It's the either mobile trainer philosophy or small gym trainer philosophy. Whatever you're buying and investing in, invest in good, high quality stuff that has multiple purposes and can be stored vertically. Those are the three rules or strategies I would give you. Nobody likes stuff stacking up on the floor. So get stuff that you can stack. Yeah, you can store vertically. It always makes the room look bigger and cleaner and safer. And you don't have a bunch of stuff on the ground people are going to trip on.
Yes. So in closing, that was one thing I was going to say too. I love that you have actual racks, and those that look like pretty sturdy racks. Like you said, they have anchors on them. So guys, invest in the storage for the equipment that you have. Not only is it going to keep the equipment longer for you, but like you said, it keeps your space clean. It keeps people safe, keeps people from getting injured, tripping over stuff, right? Having to climb over stuff. I'm working on organizing my garage. I'm working on it. But yeah, the racks they can be expensive depending on which ones you get.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And you start off, like, people see this and like, Rob, I can't afford all this stuff. And I'm like, I couldn't either. When I started, we started with this rack with dumbbells on it. And then I had these 4 kettlebells right here. That's all I had. That was it in this room. And you can go back to the start of the pandemic. Like, we had this wall we just put up and we didn't have the rack yet. We just had those 2 sets of weights and that was it. Then we got the racks came in. Then I got the wall mounted rack a week or 2 later. And then like a month later, we bought a couple more kettlebells. And 2 months later, we bought the ski erg. And then a couple months. And so you just get the stuff that you need. Then you can start investing in the stuff that you want. Just make a list. And Alan Cosgrove was my business coach, especially when I first started out. We did a ton of stuff with him in like 2008 to 2012. I went to almost all of his business courses. They're fantastic. I didn't know what gross total income was. I didn't know what a net total income was. I didn't know what ROI meant. There were so many things that I didn't know. Going to school to be a Knies grad, you didn't learn a lot about business. So I'm like, I need somebody to teach me this. So going to him, he taught me a lot. There's a lot of business coaches. I'm just saying he's a good one. And one of the things he talked about a lot is with the equipment, you could take one client and be like, every time Jenny comes in, when she pays me, that money goes into the equipment jar, right? Yeah. And then when Rob comes in, that goes into my vacation jar. And then when Alexa comes in, that goes to my education jar. And then all the rest is for running the gym, paying me, doing all the other stuff. But those 3 jars get filled up. And I literally had envelopes with all those things written on it, and they were taped to the back of my front door. So when people came in, the door opened, they would never see. I was worried I was a college student and poor and not in a great neighborhood. So I'm like, where would they never look? They won't look behind the door they just came in, right? So I taped them to the back of the door. And every time that client would come in, I just take that $50 and slide it in there and slide it in there. And I had the next piece of equipment, that I wanted. And when I hit $200, I took the $200, put it in the bank, bought that piece of equipment. And I just, every time, whatever was next, I put the number, this one's going to be $350 for this, pulley system that I wanted. And so I'd save up and I'd get $350. I'd scratch that off, go deposit it and make that purchase. And I just did that over and over and over again. Still do it today. I don't use envelopes. I use a safe.
That's actually a really smart idea.
Yeah. So
really smart idea.
It's been good.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. Great business tips at the end here, Robert. You're always a joy. We will definitely have you back. I think I'm going to put out a little survey and ask everybody to put in the comments on this video what else you want to hear about from Robert too. Because we'll definitely have him back, and he's a wealth of information for you guys.
I can talk. We can go into programming. We can talk business. We can talk marketing. We can talk referrals. We can talk injuries, physical limitations. We talk about future and goals and retirement. I have no problem talking. We can talk about whatever.
Well, I think our next topic should be programming, because that is something we get a lot of questions on. And that's something that a lot of people, it takes a while to get good at it. So maybe that'll be our next topic, Robert. I think you just figured it out. That's what we got. All right, guys, but comment away. Let us know what you want to hear from. But thank you again, Robert, so much for joining us. This has been great.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching. And of course, sounds like we're going to be talking about some programming here coming up soon. So keep an eye out for the next episode. We'll be talking to you guys soon.